Welcome to the AI Applied podcast. Today on the podcast, there is so much news happening from both the CEO of OpenAI, Sam Altman, and Dario Amadei over at Anthropic about AGI. Both of them have made statements this last week on it, which are fascinating. We want to talk about not just, maybe what they've said, but maybe why they've said it, maybe some of the implications about what's being said here, so that you can better prepare yourself for essentially what's coming. And our goal is to help you separate a little bit the hype from the reality of the situation. So kicking this over to you, Connor, tell us about who's saying what in this.
Yeah, I mean, these conversations about AGI are always fascinating because in some way they are no longer, what's going to happen in 2065 or what's going to happen in the next 50 years. If you believe Dario Amadei and believe Sam Altman, then we are looking at something like AGI in the next couple of years. Now, let's say right at the top, to balance it right at the top, if you talk to somebody like a Jan LeCun, who runs AI over at Meta and is over at NYU where I am, and he's saying things like, this has the intelligence of a house cat. How can these things be so wildly off? So we want to take into consideration, do they have an ulterior motive for saying it? Do they know something we don't know? I'm a little bit more in the camp, Jaeden, I'm curious where you are. I'm a little more in the camp of, I think they know stuff that we don't know. And I think that one of the things that Dario Amadei said on his Lex Friedman interview, which was apparently 5.5 hours, which I did not listen to that whole thing. But Dario Amadei has a record for saying this over the last couple of months about where we think this is happening and how fast we think it's happening. And the years that he's giving here are years like 2026, 2027. Sam Altman, just for context, said when he was asked by who was it? I think it was Gary Tan or something like that. Was that right from Y Combinator? Mm-hmm. Saying, what are you excited about in 2025? And Altman said AGI. Now, I think that I don't think he meant it's coming in 2025. But the fact that he had already said, Sam Altman, that in the next 1,000 days, we may have something like super intelligence, all points to me to one thing, which is, how are these things going to get there? How are they scaling? We've already seen some things in the news, Jaeden, as you have too, that say, has this slowed down? Is the leap from GPT-4 to 5 slowing down? And what we have seen is this counter argument, which is they're just growing in a different way. They're growing through different kinds of reasoning models. So the bottom line, are we going to have AGI in the next couple of years? Who knows? But the more interesting thing to me is, how is it defined? What does AGI look like? What does it feel like to us? Guys, 2 years is nothing. Like, if you can imagine, you're now trying to plan for the future of your office, the future of your life. And what does that feel like? These are questions we have to start thinking about. So, Jaeden, what are you seeing on this? What's exciting to you? What does AGI feel like? And then I want to get into the whole Microsoft, our conspiracy theory around with Microsoft too.
Yeah. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is when we're talking about, Sam Altman indeed did claim that AGI is going to be coming next year. You can assume he means end of next year, right? Not beginning of next year, since we seem a little far away from this.
In like a month and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to define what he's talking about by AGI. So they have these 5 levels of AGI over at OpenAI. And the first level was, or 5 steps to get to AGI. The first thing was chatbots. We got that with ChatGPT. The second level, which we just recently achieved with the O1, is the reasoners. Essentially, this is an AI with human levels, problem solving across a bunch of topics. Well, I don't think O1 preview is perfect. This is essentially what they're calling reasoners, because the way it takes one prompt, it runs it through a series of, 10 or 20 different prompts to really make sure it's doing chain of thought and reasoning correctly. This is what they've said they've achieved, this kind of level 2 reasoner. Level 3 is agents. Agents, there's also rumors this is coming out. We'll do a whole nother podcast on this, but there's rumors this is coming out January of next year. So this is essentially an AI system that can take actions independently from human instructions. A lot of big companies are working on this. This is kind of the next big thing from OpenAI. And the next thing after this is level 4. So before this AGI happened, like, let's assume that agents come out at the beginning of, come out in January, a couple months here. They have to somehow get through innovators and then level 5 AGI before the end of the year. So they're going to be quite busy, but innovators are essentially an AI that can aid in the invention of new ideas and contribute to human knowledge. This is an interesting concept. My assumption is they must have already cracked this in some way if Sam Altman's so confident that AGI will be achieved next year, because this has to essentially come next. This is the next thing that's in the pipeline. Once this is done and they have this AI that can come up with new ideas, the final step of AGI, which he's hoping, let's say, is going to roll out in December next year, or maybe if it gets delayed, or maybe, okay, I'll tell you exactly what's going to happen. They're going to have a big announcement in December, and they're going to say, this is what it is. They're going to show up this demo, and we're definitely not getting it till halfway through 2026, if not the end of 2026. That's my prediction. I'll bet a little money on that. But in any case, level 5 AGI is AI that is capable of doing all of the work of an organization independently. Keyword here, and we'll see if they move the goalpost on this, but all of the work, everything that an organization needs to do, it will do by itself. Now, you could give it direction, I'm assuming, like an agent, but it's capable of doing everything. This is a big task. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this, Connor?
No, I mean, I'm so glad you pointed that out. By the way, guys, if you're only listening to the podcast, we love our podcast listeners, but just know that Jaeden is running through demos and showing some really cool things as we are speaking, if you want to check out our YouTube channel. So this is the 5 steps to AGI that I'm just fascinated by. And the top one being an AI agent that will be running the entire company. It just does not feel like we are a year and a half away from that. It feels preposterous. And I guess even seeing what agents are looking like right now with, Anthropic, we've already gotten a taste. Google accidentally leaked Jarvis for a few minutes, which does the same thing. I'm sure Microsoft is working on this. I'm sure OpenAI has been leaked. All these places are leaking that's coming out. Mark Benioff over at Salesforce is like, everybody else's is trash. Our agents are the best. But you cannot have AGI without having agents. This is not just going to be a better chatbot that speaks differently. As we have seen, they have sort of jumped to a parallel track here from GPT 3.54 and then ultimately 5 into this new reasoning thing, which is supposed to learn in a different way. So all the naysayers saying, oh, well, we're not there and it's slowing down. We don't know how they're working internally. They seem to have found a different way of helping these things learn. But ultimately with AGI, if these things really are going to change the way that we live and work, and arguably if it says all the work, as Jaeden is pointing out, what is left for humans to do? Now, I have very strong opinions on that. I think there's a ton for humans to do, of course. I think that that's the interesting part of the conversation, which is how do you start preparing for even a possible future of this? In the same way that if you're in commodities or something, you have to prepare for big storms or something like that. Jaeden, the interesting thing to me that we were talking about, and by the way, I want to click on that. I want you to first address the article that you have up right now because it's totally awesome. But secondly, Jaeden, you and I have to spend a minute on what this means for their relationship with Microsoft, which when Microsoft has a 49% stake, this is billions and billions of dollars we're talking about. Talk to me about, first of all, what you have up right now, which I love.
Yeah. So, okay, well, the funny thing I have up right now is that apparently Sam Altman says that we'll pass AGI in 5 years, which I don't know. It's kind of interesting because he's like, yep, we're definitely getting AGI next year.
It said whoosh. Hold on. I want to read it. Sam Altman claims AGI will whoosh in 5 years.
Yes. Okay. So we're going to go way past AGI in 5 years, but Sam Altman says that there will be surprisingly little societal change. This is an interesting thing to me. So then, of course, we have the CEO of Anthropic predicting 2026, 2027, having the big breakthrough. And he said there is no ceiling below the level of humans. There's a lot of room at the top for AIs. So they really think this thing is going to be quite powerful. But what's interesting to me is the surprisingly little societal change that they're also predicting, right? Because a lot of people could be like, well, we pass AGI, the robots can take over, they can do everything for us. I think there's a lot of constraints that might stop that, dystopian future. But before we get into that, let's talk about why everyone is so obsessed with AGI, especially when it seems like this is something that will have little societal change if they're, correct. Why is everyone so obsessed with it? Why are they talking about it? I think there's a couple big reasons. Number one, OpenAI obviously is a company and also Anthropic that rely heavily on investments, billions of dollars every single year. These guys have to raise, and it's not just like, oh, we're raising it because because it's fun to raise a ton of money and make something big. They're raising it because they need it. They are burning through, I think like $5 to $3 billion, depending on OpenAI, or I think OpenAI might be doing more close to $6 billion a year, burning through all of that cash on compute and data and everything else and salaries. So this stuff's expensive. The other thing that is very interesting is in the current deal that Sam Altman made with Microsoft, as soon as they achieve AGI, Microsoft no longer is entitled to a portion of the profits that OpenAI has, nor are they entitled to future technology that comes after AGI. So AGI is essentially this kind of benchmark that is this, it's this off switch for OpenAI to say, see you later, and essentially get out of their deal with Microsoft. Now, my assumption here is that whenever AGI or whatever OpenAI calls AGI comes out, they're going to say, look, we hit AGI, we're out of the deal with Microsoft, see you later. And Microsoft is going to say, not so fast, that's not AGI. And lawsuits will essentially keep these two together, fighting it out until, they're able to get out of this. It's really interesting because there was no definitive, essentially benchmark of what exactly AGI was and how well it works when the deal was made. Even the example that I was reading to you earlier, from OpenAI itself, of what level 5 AGI is, which is an AI that's capable of doing all of the work of an organization independently. Even that definition wasn't written when the deal with Microsoft went into place. So because this is kind of this new thing they came out with, right? So it's just a really interesting time, and a lot of speculation that maybe all of this hype around it is just kind of a way for them to get out of their Microsoft commitment.
I think this is I love this take, and I totally agree with it, because I think we are coming up at some point into the lawsuit of all lawsuits, right? Because at this point, I mean, right now it's worth what, like $180 billion. I mean, like, this is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think that level 5 AGI is a fair definition. All AI that is capable of doing all the work of an organization independently. And I think even Microsoft could get behind that definition, because that does not feel like it's coming in 2026, especially, again, if you're Jan LeCun and you say it has the intelligence of a house cat right now. So maybe that is it. I mean, and maybe that is a simple definition where we have AGI. Is it running the entire organization without any interference from anything else? That's what's going to be so interesting in terms of how they define it. But remember that behind all this stuff, behind the technology, everything else, is this colossal business agreement, and with hundreds of billions of dollars on the line. So that's what gets so interesting about this. Jaeden, we could go on and on, but I will say that just the big story around here is keep watching to hear what these big people are saying. Weigh it with the other side. Don't think we ever have it all figured out, and keep on tracking along. And guys, if you enjoyed this podcast, we just ask for one favor, as we always do. If you haven't yet left a rating or review, we would so appreciate it. And we hope you have an amazing rest of your day.